This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, maybe we should start. So there are about 30 people registered. So far I saw 16 or 17 join. So maybe they will join one by one, and hopefully we'll have a good session today. So just to start, we welcome everyone to Network to Connect. It's a series of networking event by the corporate group. Corporate group is a Dubai entity and based in United Arab Emirates. The aim is to provide a free networking platform to learn, network, connect, and collaborate for business growth. Don't forget to follow us on the TCG social media, and we will do an email on the survey for after this event. So just to get the feedback from participants, and we'll have a Q&A session. We'll have it one after the first speaker, and we'll have after the second speaker as well. We will have more questions at the end. Today we have two speakers. We have Mr. Ayman Al-Wadi. Ayman Al-Wadi is the Group Executive Chairman of AW Holding International. He has over 25 years of experience and professional in business advisory, risk management, credit and debt management, and legal debt collection. We've got the second speaker from Hong Kong, Dr. Sarah Chung. She has over 30 years of experience at strategic levels with major local and multinational organizations in different sectors. So she has served in countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates from this region, but as well she has worked in Asia Pacific and also in the US. And she has done advisory. She's done advisory and a lot of things on the strategic and consultancy in areas like HR, operation maintenance, and different sectors such as in healthcare, transportation, education, and so forth. Today, we're touching on a topic which is very much relevant to post-COVID, especially many organizations have emphasized on looking after post-COVID on areas like risk management, debt management, as well as crisis management. So risk management, as we know, it's identifying and assessing and controlling threats of any businesses. And these threats or risk could vary. It could be due to financial uncertainty, or it could be legal liabilities or strategic management errors, or anything that has to do with accidents or natural disasters. And crisis management is we know it is a process by which an organization deals with disruptive and unexpected events. So again, today, as we know, that COVID has been affected many businesses this year. So these are the two areas that we will be discussing today. So I'll leave the floor to Mr. Ayman to present it, and he's got a few slides to run through this one. So the floor is yours, Ayman.
Thank you, Adil. Good morning, good afternoon, and it's a bit early to say good evening. It is a bit early, and I believe we will try to enjoy the coming 15 minutes. And in advance, thank you very much for whoever make an effort to attend our today's webinar. I would say simply, during the pandemic, every one of us had dozens, thousands, I can say, of emails for post-COVID and advisory and what you need to do in this and that. What I will try to do today, just to be on the ground and in real life and to see what does it mean this COVID for us and for our businesses, and what in real life we need to understand from all these learnings, where it should reflect positively in our plans and strategic plans for the future. So allow me to share my screen and my presentation. Fine. I try to choose a subject, which is the. Just a second, please. Fine. So our subject today is how to bulletproofing your business. It's not a James Bond story. It is something we need just all of us to enjoy and to learn, and each of us to exchange the experience, everyone from his domain. As Mr. Adel introduced me, my name is Ayman Al-Wadi, Group Executive Chairman of Al-Wadi Holding, where I'm not here to promote Al-Wadi Holding, and I'm here just to give our experience in a particular field. So going forward, fine. It is, we need to understand one thing and to agree on it. This COVID is very much in you, and all these assumptions and predictions and it is a trial one after the other. Whatever positive outcome from the trial we taken, and whatever is not that positive we leaving. So we, in our opinion, it is a transformation era in the history. It is a transformation and need a lot of actually learning to understand. During the lockdown, we realized that all of us, we can start taking care of ourselves, then our employees, then back to the business. And this is what did happen in terms of the behavior we realized in the market. When we talk about the global economy, it is not for a particular economy. Yes, there are some economies who really get affected and some little, but all of these global economies are affected in a way or other. The transformation, it is not only in the credit risk in that particular domain. It is in all domains. It's in all businesses. It's in all type of businesses. So this is something we need just always to keep in mind. And today, what we will try just to put the spotlight and to have the focus on the credit risk. So accordingly, let us take the step ahead together and to go through the roadmap of the upcoming 15 minutes discussion. So the discussion roadmap will be as simple as we will take you through default ratios and behavior after the COVID-19, because in this learning, we would understand where we are standing and where we going forward. Then we need to understand there always are losses, and no one will go without losses, but our goal here today, try together to minimize these losses. Then, and accordingly, what type of solutions and plans and strategy we need to keep ready in this particular point of time. Now, the stories, and our person loves stories. The stories more about facts and figures. So numbers speak a story, and the source is AW Intelligence, which tells us there is in the United Arab Emirates and in the GCC in 2019, if we run a comparison versus 2020 in the first quarter and the second quarter, it is more or less the default ratio get doubled. And unfortunately, we need again to keep in mind that what happened in a few months may resulted some serious challenges and changes in the whole economy for coming, let us say some people, they said like 3 years, 5 years, but we will not jump to a specific number. But the logic said these few months would reflect an impacted for us and our economies in terms of facing challenges for upcoming years, let us say 3 to 5 years. Again, another like highlight I would like you to take you through. Through the, again, the source is AW Debt Management Intelligence. If we look at who did affect, the affected, I would say, sector SMEs. with the graph is still the story without even putting a single word forward. If we look at how the effect and impact between the SMEs and medium and large corporate, the graph tells the story, and we don't want to put much here because we need to understand our position. The people in this room, if they put themselves in SMEs size or medium or large, they need to understand in that category what is the impact overall. And again, it is not something new I'm putting here on my screen, but it is something in terms of numbers may just make some difference, that all, as we said beginning of this, that the whole global economy get affected, but we now need to put it detailed look at the industry. So if we look at the general trading, to the logistics, to the financial, to the healthcare, we would realize that general trading, according to our intelligence, it shows 41% default, and manufacturing 16, almost 17. So all of them, but we need just to, again, to understand that there are some industries get really affected. So if you're dealing directly or indirectly, or you are in those, you need to understand your challenge. It is bigger than the other industries, according to the graphs we put. Now, the COVID, it is something like I call it era, and it did change a lot. And what actually I'm sharing here, again, it is not something very much new, and I'm sure that during the COVID, you got flooded with emails, said some of those, but in particular, I'm highlighting those because actually at the second and third slide, we will look at the risk factors because happen out of these things. So if we look at the GDP, it is quite obvious. It's really get affected in a global level. If we looked at the ratios where I shared, it is doubled in terms of B2B and B2C. It depends, and if I put it in a global level and in a domestic level and a global level, it is doubled. So I thought we need just to look at some other independent sources like First Abu Dhabi Bank. It shows from 0.6 to jump to 4.1. It is more or less actually matching the thing. So here there is a severe impact we need to put in mind, which is eventually, and it is quite clear and not a surprise that people, the first thing, the core person, they would look at the first element in their books to see actually where they get the financial hit, which is the employment. So unfortunately, most of the corporate, they went through letting go people, which affected to increase the labor and liquidation cases, which we saw a serious increase in the liquidation cases. And accordingly, of course, the subject of the credit risk, there is an impact of the debt recovery. The debt recovery or the cash or the liquidity, it is the fuel. You cannot drive your vehicle without enough fuel. So we need to make sure today that do we have enough fuel, or if we don't have, how to refill and to have a full tank of fuel. Defaulters leaving country, again, it is not a shame, and debtors, anyone can be a debtor, and it is not up to the debtor or his wish to be a debtor, but the situation pushed them to be a debtors, and the solution not always to be go aggressive, but we can go serious. We can go serious but not aggressive, because the human being reaction, if someone has threat, yes, he will go back home. This is not a shame. But actually, like being a creditor and you need to collect your money back, or you need to refuel your tank with enough fuel to carry on the journey, you need to have a wise experts to collect your money back in a way not to crash the thing and to get the fuel in your tank. So write-off, it is an option, and it is, unfortunately, we saw there is people accept the fact, and other than this, I would link this to the liquidation cases we went through, and I saw some insolvency cases and bankruptcy as well. So all those, it doesn't mean that actually you need immediately to write off. It might be an option, but you need to get the maximum debt to be collected and to refill the financial tank for the journey. Now there are steps. We simplify it in a way, and it is simple and it's not a rocket science. But here we will put the advisory part and the risk, how to mitigate the risk. We would start with the time. Time is so precious, and it is really important in a way you cannot imagine. Because from the intelligence we have, that we find that, and as they said, and as I'm in a way of not with to stand with the creditor or with the debtor, we need to get the thing done. But here I said we need to be serious and not to be aggressive. So the time when your client get in a default, you need here really timely to follow and monitor the situation of your debtor. And you need, according to your evaluation or your partner evaluation to the debtor, to understand, is it something about to give a waiver and to collect the money back? During the pandemic, I can tell from our MIS, there was a strategy which is like it did work, and it was a bit shocking, where the credit officer in charge, the collectors, they had great deals with the debtors in a way of, now there is a lockdown, and if you pay it now, you get off 30%. I thought this would not work, this strategy, but it did work. So sometimes the debtors, and again, this is a normal corporate behavior, they've got the cash, they've got the fuel, but they were just prefer to keep it, and they will not pay unless you make it a priority for them. So this is what I meant by time. So do not accept 10 broken promises. If from the first default you need to visit your clients, or you need to have appropriate expert professional partner to evaluate the situation to you. This is something really important in terms of the time. We need to keep in mind that if the debtor not paying you today, he's paying someone else, and he's paying the one, he's giving bit privilege or a payment plan or a waiver, or he is serious to an extent that he's taking his things to the authority. Advice, yes, everyone knows and he's expert in his domain. So if it's like a medical, there's expert people, they know about their business domain. If it's this or that industry, when it will come to your receivable, which is the fuel, and without the fuel, you cannot do much. Yes, you can handle the first phase of it, the first evaluation. If you have good in-house team, they can do support. But during the challenging time, you need to mitigate the risk by having experts in place, in partnership, and to have appropriate guidelines. The guidelines, if we take as an example the construction, they are expert and they are good enough in the construction strategies, and to a certain extent, the first round to collect their debts from the market, and to manage that risk. But at the time of a crisis, this is what we really need. We need actually to go back to clear guidelines. We need to re-review the credit policies. We need to have experts. We need to have our guns ready. If it's like about credit risk, you need someone to understand the risk factors in terms of the credit, and in terms of the connection, in terms of the region risk. So all these actually need like a partner in success with you, be ready, and not to start searching for this partner at the time of the crisis. I believe it is earlier and before and post of that, you need to keep those partners ready. You need, again, a lawyer and actually not a conventional lawyer. You need actually a business-oriented lawyer to manage the situation and to put appropriate guidelines in terms of when to do this, when to do that, when we need actually to reduce the tool, how to mitigate the risk before the debtor leaving the country, how mitigating the risk before this company shut down their operation. So the conclusion and the advice, it's all about the appropriate advice from the right people, where they would put together and along with the client the guidelines suiting this era. Now, actions, this is actually the most important, and I'm linked very much. Now, you looked at actually the time factor, then actually you got the appropriate advice and appropriate and strong partners in success. Now, actions, you need seriously to be really fast. And this is what I said beginning of my presentation, which is like, I will not say that go and harass the other corporates, no, or go and put them behind the bars. And that's why we said we need to understand, and to understand you need actually experts in their field, but hand to hand, you need to be really taking this serious in a way of, if a first promise not taken, second promise not taken, third promise not taken within a period of a week to, let us say, 3 weeks. If you run this internally, which I prefer at the moment to use experts actually to run those for you, and if you give the appropriate credit options to the debtor in terms of, I'm going to give you some waiver and let us close the chapter, or I'm going to give you a payment plan, or there is some trade and exchange. But again, all these within the acceptable margin of risk. This is something we really need to keep in action. Recovery and how to refill the tank for the journey and for the not the clear journey, because even the COVID is not that clear. If it's over or there is a wave back, you need enough and enough, by all means, of enough liquidity and cash. So needs to recover through two things: the amicable collection and the contingency planning. And of course, we cannot forget the practice your corporate legal rights. Legal rights is fine. LDC, it is legal debt collection. It is a combination between risk, credit, legal, business advisory, debt, because it is actually how things can mitigate it. This is actually the way we thought by creating the product. The introduction of the product actually during the first and second and third crisis, name it, creditors and debtors, they experience either they filing cases or there are cases filed against them. By having this practice once or twice, they know somehow how to avoid and how to avoid your payment and how to delay your payment. So in my opinion, when amicable not happening in, let us say, 30 to 60 days with an acceptable margin of risk ratio, you are in a T-junction either to invest more, and to invest more means to take this legal debt collection through the appropriate business-oriented lawyer, or to write it off, because if you keep waiting, it will not happen itself unless you practicing your right. And again, what I'm sharing with you, it is not something just like for the United Arab Emirates. We operating in 197 countries and branches across the GCC. I can confirm that the story is similar in a domestic level. This is what I'm trying to say. A story similar in a domestic level or in a global level. So if you trade in a domestic or a global level, it is actually the same story in terms of the actions. Here, the learnings and the credit risk intelligence, we saw it is not too dark. And we thought it is too dark at the time, beginning of the quarantine and the pandemic. But during the pandemic itself, there was like a serious amount of cases being collected successfully, but because of the experience and the know-how and the coordination and the partnership between the service provider or the partner along with the creditor. So this is like a little story, and it is quite obvious. We're talking about X large ticket size 1.2, and it is in the pandemic, and it is in two different regions, and it did work big time, and it is during the quarantine. I believe I did exceed the 15 minutes, and I believe if you didn't ask, you won't get. So thanks for listening, and I'll be more than happy to attend any of the question within the coming session or the upcoming session or after that. Mr. Adil, take the floor.
Thank you, Ayman, for comprehensive and touching on the specific areas that concerning many businesses, SMEs, as well as multinational corporations. So while Dr. Sarah, maybe you can prepare your slides. Maybe I'll ask one question, and then we have further questions at the end of Dr. Sarah's presentation. So in the debt collection, the cycle and time, okay, between if it's a small, medium companies or large companies, or if it's government contracts, what kind of a scale of time we're talking about those conversations would take place?
Okay, fine, Mr. Adil. The thing is, I should just like put it in this way, according to the chart I put earlier, which is there is a small and medium and large corporate, and each size of those has its own nature. And there is a government and semi-government. So each of those has its own, but in general, I would say, if I am the creditor, I will not allow more than 30 to 60 days between me and even my partner. And even my partner, if he couldn't do it in 30 to 60 days, I would activate my corporate legal rights to go ahead and take my collection in a place. So it is 30 to 60. This is my personal opinion if I'm the creditor. And the other 30 days to 90s, I'm going to practice my legal rights.
Thank you. Oh, Stephen here, by the way. Question, if you don't mind.
Yep.
I mean, the assumption is that the people who own money, the debtors, actually can pay. Because if the economy has collapsed so badly, and we can look around, it has, there may not be any way they can pay back. Isn't that more critical? Squeezing people who are now semi-bankrupt or struggling, how is that going to help the overall economy?
You finished?
Yep.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Stephen, for the question. And this is what I said during the presentation. I'm not in favor to harass anyone or to put extraordinary pressure, because if it's not there, it is not there. And that's why I said you need the experts in field to evaluate. I said we need actually someone to give us the guidelines and the market update, because in this way, the advisory would say, to take this as one example. Fine. If he is not in position to pay and he might shut down his operation, I would immediately take the legal debt collection in a place. If there are assets, I can execute. And this is the worst case scenario. So I should be the first. Fine. But I said, at first, the guidelines should evaluate the debtor position. So is he after some waivers, or is he after some payment plan? And is he after some more time, but within the acceptable margin ratio of risk? So if and then this is what I said to Adil, that 30 days, within the 30 days, if it's in-house or through like a partner in success to handle the matter, he should be in position to tell what is the appropriate solution. So if he's not the debtor, he's not anymore in position to pay, I need to practice anything I could do and the law allow me to do. And this is actually the worst case scenario. But before that, and you know what I said in the intelligence and the MIS I got, I thought it is too dark at the time of the quarantine, but there was a lot of collection taking place. So if the case gone, there is actually like we need to be fast, and as fast as we can protect whatever asset we can collect from the debtor. Otherwise, we need just to go and helping the economy and helping the corporates. I wish if that clear enough.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ayman. Now we'll go to Dr. Sarah's presentation, and we have more questions, but we'll take it at the end of the session after Dr. Sarah's presentation. So the floor is yours, Dr. Sarah.
Now I unmute myself first. So everyone can hear me well and also see the screen now?
Yes, Dr. Sarah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me go to slideshow. All right. So after hearing about Ayman, I'm not sure I want to continue. I need to collect my debt first. So let's go to my presentation, right? So it's just go by itself because he knows that I want to be quick. Now, talking about risk management, so my title is Getting Ahead of the Next Crisis. In the past, we do a lot of training, we write a lot of procedure on crisis management. And usually the senior management are fine with that, and they get excited, they get it done, they get all the training done. But most people think it won't happen. And now everybody see the COVID-19, the pandemic, and crisis management now come back to fashion. So a lot of my clients are talking about that. So what I'm saying is, it's not now. We need to talk is about the future. So what I'm going to talk about will be the crisis. Oh, sorry about that. This is go by itself. Let me control it better. All right. So what I want to talk firstly is about crisis preparedness, how we're going to prepare. Otherwise, we won't be able to handle the next one. And when crisis actually happen, what we should do, and also what lessons we learned from this COVID-19. Now, what is a crisis? Now, a lot of people do talk about, can we really manage crisis? I still remember my last training course on crisis. One of the staff, one of the participants say, how can you teach crisis management? Because it happened in a way that nobody can predict. So most people say the definition is something unpredictable, undesirable, and also likely to affect the organization in a big way, affecting the normal business. Then in such case, how can we talk about preparedness? So I will go into that topic a little bit later. Now, the most important thing is when we classify a crisis, we will see that this event, if it happens, it affects us not just on the normal business. Financial is one thing that Ayman has talked about. It also could affect the organization's reputation. It can affect people. And as you can see worldwide, there's a lot of death because of the illness. Now, can we prepare for that? Can we be better than that? These days, a lot of debate and argument, but I would say that, of course, we can if we do it carefully. If you look at what Hong Kong has done, where we have SARS before. So in a way, Hong Kong is a little bit more well prepared than other countries and quite under control until we have this third wave, which I'm going to talk about as well. Even you're well prepared, you think you are in control, but crisis will come back. And so what we should be doing about it. Then apart from affecting the financial side, the people side, the reputation, we also look at environment, look at health, and not just locally, it affects globally if we're not controlling it well. So in a way, it's all the good reason that we really need to look at crisis as one of the most important management aspect. So whose responsibility? I would say is the executive responsibility. And somebody sitting at the board level, at the executive management level, should be taking an overall coordination, should own the whole strategy of crisis management. It should be from top down to talk about how we can prepare the company to be much better manage it. And it should be effective, it should be timely, it should be flexible, it should be responsive. Whatever we see now, right? It is not just something that we can plan on all aspects, but if we have planned, we can respond quicker. After we have planned, still it may not be enough. We need to plan again, we need to plan ahead. So it has to be very responsive. And the goal is, of course, we want to avoid and minimize any damage to the company's profitability, reputation, and also we can get back to normal. Now, this day, we all talk about the new normal. The new normal may be different from what the previous normal. So again, I'll talk about that in terms of the new crisis management perspective is we prepare, we manage, we think we get back to normal, but maybe we're not normal yet. So we have to think about a new normal. But what is a new normal? So everybody is trying to define that. But overall, why we do crisis management is about business continuity, it's about business resilience. Unless we do that, we won't survive. So just like Stephen's question about if I want to collect my debt, but the company may not be surviving, they may be struggling financially, they cannot even pay. So it's go to the point under crisis, multiple parties being affected. Only if organization being responsive can manage it, can continue the business, can have resilience, then it's multiple parties that would benefit. So I have the similar slide like Ivan, how we're going to do it step by step. So number one thing is I talk about preparedness first. Right? In our normal days, we should prepare. But a lot of people say now we are affected by the pandemic. Can we start now? Now, it's never too late to start. As you can see in many countries, first wave, second wave, third wave. Hong Kong is having the third wave. It doesn't mean we won't have the fourth wave because the world is still suffering. So the preparedness can be, in the past, would be something like we start the business, we start the organization, we do it in advance. Now we do it at different stage, or we do it continuously. So number one thing is we do risk assessment. We can use a lot of a good model on risk management. So I just quote one of the EU standard, which we can do the risk analysis, we prioritize risk, we base on the priority, we quantify risk, and then we come up with the mitigation measures. The second step is scenario projection. I think this is very important. Even we do the analysis, we need to project the scenario. Say, for example, in the past, we may put down financial crisis. Right? We look at the economy, we look at the country we are in, we look at the political situation. But we only predict that based on a lot of survey and data. What I'm suggesting is we need to look at scenarios. If this risk is very high, what the scenario would be like. For example, we go back to coronavirus. Right? We say pandemic is a risk. So what the scenario should be? If I am in healthcare, the scenario will be if I'm in a private healthcare, take Hong Kong for example, the private healthcare is not prepared for this type of illnesses, right? And it needs special setup. Then the scenario is, would I be able to continue serving the patients? Right? What if I have an infectious patient come to my hospital? What can I do? Project the scenario and do something about it. If I'm in a public hospital, then the scenario would be a major crisis. The interesting thing is because hospital authority is one of my clients. So when I was talking to them, I thought every single person is very busy. In fact, it is not. It's only those handling the infectious disease department in crisis. They are very busy. The West, because they're going to cut some of the services, the West are not. So the scenario is quite interesting. Even within an industry, within an organization, there are different scenarios when the crisis comes. So what I suggest is we do need to project the scenarios in operation, in environment, in financial situation, human resources management, legal compliance, or any hostile actions, and of course the pandemic side that I have mentioned about, then what we need to do is to do the analysis, analyze and consider possibility to avoid and minimize or mitigate the risk. And so go back to the pandemic situation, go back to this infectious disease situation, how we can avoid. It's very difficult, we can avoid, but we can protect. Say, for example, if we do, now a lot of people are looking at hygiene, looking at getting people healthier. And these are the way that we minimize the illnesses that would be seriously affecting the workforce. So we can look at avoid if possible, if not at least minimize. Contingency plans, these are very important. All right, so we come up with plans, we should practice. Now take another scenario of crisis. Because I worked in a lot of transport organization, one of the crises people are now talking about is the possibility of terrorist attack, for example. In the past, a lot of countries are considered very low risk on terrorist attack, but these days, the risk level become higher. Then we come up with a contingency plan. What if the train is being hijacked? What if there is a terrorist in a station? So we work out the scenario, we work out how to deal with that, and we train people and with the contingency plan. So that's what we say after we've done everything. To actually make it effective is we really need to practice it as well. So this is preparedness. Preparedness, we have to do the risk on all aspects, not just on one aspect. It's from financial to operations, to environment, to people, and so on and so forth. And each one of them, we should project the scenario, we should come up with the contingency plan, and we should practice as well. Right, so this is a risk assessment matrix. For those who have done risk analysis before, must have seen this before. But I want to repeat that is, although a lot of people know about it, but how serious we are going to do that. So we need to start with a full list of risks. Have we got the full list? That's number one question. So I have one client, so I talked to them, and they're pretty good actually. They have a risk register. They have a long list. This company is a construction company. So obviously all the risk is about construction. So they don't have one on pandemic. Right? So when the COVID-19 affecting us, the workforce gets sick and get infected and pass from one person to the others. So the whole work site has to close. So I go back to look at the risk list. There's nothing on this aspect. So most of construction company would have all the risk analysis relating to construction safety, relating to site safety, supply chain, and so on and so forth. And just they don't have this particular one, and that affects the whole business. So that's why I show this again is we need to be very serious about that. We need to have a whole committee to look at all aspects so that we won't miss out some aspect, which when it comes and affect us, when we don't have preparedness, then we'll be more seriously affected. So if you can see that, right, we say how frequent that would occur. So the frequency is from the most frequent to the incredible. So if you look at the current situation, coronavirus, when we are classifying on frequency, so how frequent? If we take the first SARS, which is 2003, up to now is more than 10 years, or about 10 years, right? So is it very frequent? We can say it's remote, but when it happened now, this time is very serious, right? It's undesirable, it's catastrophic. And if it's 10 years, maybe the next, now if you look at each country, right? Wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, the difference is only about a few months. So we now have to classify it becoming probable. Then it's very undesirable, it's intolerable. So let's go back to my point about preparedness. In the past, we can review the risk list only once a year. Now we may have to review it more frequently. We may have to add into that any other risk factor that we have seen that may affect other industry, that may happen in other countries, and we should project whether that would happen to us as well. So all the red color one, we have to take seriously about it and have a strategy, have a contingency on that. And things that may be infrequent in the past, don't take it for granted. It would continue to be infrequent. So it could be promoted to any of this frequency. All right, so enough about the risk management. So for those who are listening, maybe you go back and check your risk list. Have you got everything? If not, you may want to update that. And also the classification and the quantification, the score you're giving to them may be different these days. All right, so lesson learned. Now go back to, I mentioned about in the past for crisis preparedness, a lot of people know about risk management. A lot of people have the risk register, and some good ones have mitigation measure, has contingency. Now, if you look at COVID-19, I just take a typical example, a company. Usually we have operation, we have supply chain, we have client support, we have business continuity. So in a crisis situation, all this team will be working on that. Say if you are a manufacturing company, the operation team will be taking care of the production, and the supply chain. Now, supply chain is a real issue now this day. Every single country is talking about, because of pandemic, the supply chain is being cut. So this crisis team will have to take care of that, where I can get the supply, client support. Again, if we cannot see people face to face, that's one of the reasons why we do a lot of virtual meetings. But apart from that, what else we need to do? More business continuity. Go back to Iman's point about debt and default and so on. Financially, can the company survive? So this team has to work continuously. And at the same time, what we suggest is go ahead, look ahead team. Right? Apart from managing the current, what would happen the second? Say, for example, if I'm manufacturing, I may be able to protect the production plan, but I know that the supply chain will be cut, and I take care of that as well. I have alternative sourcing. However, the business continuity is a problem because there may be no demand from the customer. Say, for example, with the isolation order, stay home order, and so on and so forth, people are not going to shopping. Right? Even for cosmetic, one interesting thing is the cosmetic industry say there is a major drop for cosmetics, in particular lipsticks. Right? Today I purposely support them, wear lipstick. And if you are wearing masks, you don't need that. So that goes to the point that there is no business continuity if there is no demand. So what can we do? So this plan, the go ahead, the look ahead plan team has to look at that. Anything that would affect our survival. So they would add in a new team into the middle box. So the current crisis management team have to be increased from time to time due to the plan ahead team. So that would make the company more robust, can continue, and can handle any unexpected crisis within the whole holistic picture of crisis. And this is another model which is a bigger focus, bigger holistic strategic focus as well. Now, although we do everything, I go back to the point, if I can handle my operations, I can continue to produce, I continue to be able to source my material, able to deliver to my client. But because of the economic situation, because of the lockdown and so on and so forth, there's no business demand at all. What should I do? So we go to the point about depth and length of industry demand disruption. If there's no demand, I cannot do business. And if we look at another dimension is extent of business disruption. If the disruption continue for a long time, so it's disrupting what I can be doing, then what should I do? So if you look at the whole graph, there's one blue one which called hardly anyone. So take a pandemic this time, hardly anyone not being affected. So forget about it. If the depth and the length of disruption is not very high, and the extent of business disruption is not very high, then we need to sustain and restore. So one of the explanation by Iman is at least if I can have healthy cash flow, I can continue, I can wait. And government is also giving subsidies. So maybe I can sustain and eventually I can restore. But then in some cases is the disruption is so big that I cannot continue with my current business. I need to do restructuring. I may need to cut down my business. I may need to delete one of the product line. I may need to change the the product from expensive product to lower cost product. So I need to do something, restructuring. And there's another one, the black one, we call shift your business model. So even if I do restructuring, I still cannot survive because the time taking too long. So I may have to shift my business model. And in the past, I may be I may be doing an OEM business. Maybe I have to shift my business model. Instead of just doing OEM, I do something else. And for us, for example, training, my business model is a lot of face-to-face interaction. Now I have to change to provide more e-learning, virtual learning. And just yesterday, I was talking to one of my customer about practical training. Right? We've deferred. I'm doing a lot of practical training for railway. We've been deferring it for so long. So what can we do? Practical, hands-on. So we have to go to VR, AR, and at least it may cover 80%. So completely shift my business model instead of face-to-face. We have to do something virtual. We have to do something different. Now, the worst case scenario is shape a new business model. It could be a worst case scenario, or it could be a business opportunity. I take another example. I have a customer who do shopping center, shopping mall. They make a lot of money out of shopping mall, renting shops out. And because of the current situation, people go online for shopping. So these shopping mall, basically, even they open, there's very few customers. So they are burning money. And then also when the customer learn how to use online purchasing, they may not go back to face-to-face purchasing. They may not go to shopping mall. So that need to be an entirely different business model for shopping mall, what we are going to use them for. I take another example. I have Airport Authority as my client. So for airport, right, they have been empty for a long time. It's a big space. And a lot of airport worldwide are planning for expansion, including Dubai, Abu Dhabi. When at the time people are planning, because we think people like shopping, going around in the airport. Because of pandemic, it can be completely no business. So in the future, all those space, we continue using them for shopping. So this is about shaping a new business model. So I think this is a very good topic, and it's a lot of discussion, a lot of practices, and a lot of case sharing to really find out the new model of crisis management, preparedness, and a new model of doing business. So I end my presentation here, because it's about time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Dr. Sarah, and thanks for you and Ayman sharing these examples and case studies as well, and reminding the businesses on what we need to do next, if there are any gaps, and to overcome these issues post-COVID-19. We've got a few questions, so we might run out of time so we'll run maybe a 5 minutes after that, if you guys are available. So the first question from Andy is, small companies cannot afford to spend large fees with lawyers and courts to recover their money. Any other solutions? So maybe Ayman can answer this one. Ayman, you're there? Ayman, did you hear the question?
Not really. There is some disturbance, so if you don't mind, if you can just repeat it, or you want me to repeat it from the chat question?
Yeah, you can read it from the chat, yeah.
So Andy said, fine. Andy, yes, this is actually like a common challenge, I would say, that sometimes you get like, and it fell always under the SMEs, small and medium. So lawyers, if you go for them for like a case with a 30,000, 50,000, 60,000, sometimes this is a challenge. So I said, you need to find the right partner. The right partner would understand how to custom a solution for you, because I'm not here to promote anyone, but one of the products we call LDC, the legal debt collection, if it's B2B, there is a scheme for it, and if it's B2C, there is a scheme for it. What I'm trying to say, the size and ticket size, it can have like a smart deal. So it can be go in number of cases, it can go in a little percentage, and it can go, and so it depends. This is what I said. You don't need a conventional lawyer. You need a business-oriented lawyer. He knows risk, credit, debt, and legal. So this is actually like, I wish if this is answering your question, you need to find the right partner. The right partner in anything. Legal or collection or risk management or whatever. But no, there are good lawyers, but early beginner. So may ask down his operation because he cannot invest little. And some other lawyers, by the way, even at the time of the quarantine, and this is one of the things actually we provided, we can go in partnership if it's like a huge portfolio and we believe we can add value, we can custom a solution as such. So I wish, Andy, I did answer your question. And there is another question again under Andy said, small companies can afford to spend. It is very much related to the first question, and I believe I did cover that. If still there is anything I can, it's not clear, I'm happy to reply. Mr. Adil.
Yeah, I've got a question regarding stakeholders. Okay, so maybe each one of you, if you can highlight who could be, you touch on topics yourself as well as Dr. Sarah. So who could be the stakeholders, identifying those maybe list in your area, for example, you touch on the debt and other things. So who could be the stakeholders that a company needs to get engaged or talk to?
Okay, fine. As the subject matter today, it is a credit risk. So I'll be trying to put the spotlight on the credit risk. So I'm talking about the debts to be collected and the receivable, the fuel to put in the tank. So when you're asking me if I understand you well, you said the stakeholders. Are you after like who the service provider as such as a stakeholder to be partner in success with the clients?
Yeah, for example, you would be helping this client. Your client is looking for debt collection. So who could be the key stakeholders that you will be dealing with, just to understand your business a bit more?
I'm afraid it's not that clear, and I don't want to go in a conflict and start promoting our holding companies here. But one of the companies called AW Debt Management, where it runs all type of debt collection, consultation, training, outsource. Usually, this company, how it did handle the business after a meeting, and they taken actually all the important and information and provide it with AW Business Advisory and Risk Management. So if it's B2B, if it's B2C, then accordingly it will be derived to the concerned stakeholders to put the right guidelines and the right recommendations.
Okay, so maybe as an example, would it be like banks, credit bureau, those kind of stakeholders you will be dealing with?
So are you referring to AW Debt Management, Mr. Adel?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is fine. So I would just try to talk general, avoiding any conflict.
Yes. Yeah,
Any credit risk or a debt manager company, they should have their own tools created, and they should have their own database and intelligence and MIS. And I would understand, because we've got here different people from different part in this world. There are countries where actually the credit is very much established in terms of a credit bureau where they provide all type of information. This is available for B2B and banks somehow here with a certain condition and terms. So I would say the credit controller in a company and the financial team and the legal advisor team, this is internal. And when we go out for external, the companies would be a debt collection company and a legal advisor.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Sarah, how about the stakeholders touching your area of presentation today? Who could be the main stakeholders?
Yeah, in terms of stakeholders, I think for any crisis, we have to look at both external and internal stakeholders, right? So I might mention about all the issue about finance. I will talk about overall crisis, right? Any crisis. If you look at external stakeholders, if you are a listed company, or your investor, in particular, the institutional investor, would want to know what is the company going to do in handling the crisis. Because if they feel that you are not really handling it, then they may not be continue supporting it. That would seriously affect the stock price. And the media is a stakeholder because they will be reporting that. Right? Internally, your employees are your stakeholders because if they feel the crisis, they feel the company is not handling it, right? Either if the capable one will be, voting by their feet, will be leaving the company. So I would say in a crisis situation, we have to be very careful in handling all the key stakeholders. What we are going to tell the investment community, what are we going to tell the media, and what are we going to tell my employees, how we are handling it. So these are very important issues, and it's a very good question. So in a crisis management committee, we usually have a team handling stakeholders for each different types of stakeholder, how we're going to say. So we have a like to take a script as well when we are talking to the board, when we are talking to the investors, when we are talking to the media. And also at the same time, we should tell the employees because the employee need to know at the same time as the public knows. So I hope that answers some of the questions here.
Yes, thank you. We have one more question before we end the session today for you, Dr. Sarah, is for scenario projections of crisis, how to generate a comprehensive list so that all possibilities are included.
Well, actually, for the risk management, the risk list, in the past, traditionally, people would have an organization, usually have a department called the risk management department. So the risk management department will come up with a list. So now if we look at what we have seen now, any of the crises could be quite unpredictable. And so what I would suggest is if the company has a risk department, has a risk manager, he should be the one creating that, but set up a committee and consult different people. The HR director can give input onto the possible scenario on human resources management in terms of crisis. Say if this is a multinational company, if one country is having a problem, what is the projection for the other country? So HR can contribute the list of scenario. And the HSQE, the health, safety, security guys can also support that by giving scenario. Operations would give scenario. Supply chain would give scenario. So the risk management list has to be expanded, and the risk management team has to be expanded. The risk management manager, or whatever title he is, he become a facilitator. He needs to get all the information. When we do the risk quantification, we need the multiple stakeholders to join the team to do the quantification. We need to look at past cases. We need to look at lessons to learn. So if you look at worldwide country, right, there are a lot of debate on should we even wear masks, should we lock down, and so on and so forth. These are real life scenarios when we are talking about some crisis that may continue, then we need to take these scenario, real life scenario, to project in your company. So it become a bigger business than in the past. It become a more serious business. And again, I would say in a normal day, maybe you can review your risk list every half a year. But when the crisis is going on, with the lesson learned this day, we have somebody to continue looking at that.
Thank you for your insight, and thank you, Ayman, also for joining us today. And we thank also for everybody joined today's sessions on risk management, crisis management. We had an insight on the process, on the identification, assessing, controlling, and monitoring these, which are important for all types of businesses, whether SMEs or larger companies. And please follow us on the social media. We will have more of these kind of events happening every month with different topics, and we look forward to seeing you in the upcoming events. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you.